So today we've got three bills we're going to hear from. We also want to hear from a group that's going to talk to us about the work that they do, that the chair really has encapsulated up under our the big Western thought about reduction. And so today's, whereas the other day we had a discussion on cannabis and the responsible approach to cannabis, today what I want us to do is focus on the centrality of redemption and criminal justice work. And I know that many folks have, at least I used to think, gaming would actually be a nice thing to do. Actually, very powerful. Activity, very powerful, necessary activity, in my opinion, for a good and just civilization. And one that is not, frankly, easy to do. Redeeming has to do with action after many consider after wrongdoing has been committed. And I don't know if you all, but I persist to struggle with that wrongdoing. And yet my own growth as an individual, and I would argue our growth as a society, really requires us to struggle with that in terms of getting to the next place of where we're called to be. I think that's the place of being community. And it's difficult to be community when we're not, when we're alienated, isolated, rejected others, including others who are one kind of community well. Particularly egregious when the others are seeking that kind of reconciliation, personal growth, as well as societal health. So I hope that today's bills will give us an opportunity to think about that and filter those deliberations along with the technical questions that this committee is really good at vetting, allow us to vet these proposals with that concept of value reduction. So with that, members, we're going to start. So with that, I want to ask representatives from the group Allsquare to come forward and share with us who they are, what they do, why they do it, and any other words of wisdom and advice they would have of us as policymakers entrusted with the public safety and well-being of our state. So with that, I welcome you to the committee and look forward to your testimony. And whoever starts, our procedure is we introduce ourselves for the record by name, and then we'll proceed with our testimony.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to be here today. My name is Emily Hunt Turner, and I'm the founder and CEO of Allsquare, a craft grilled cheese restaurant and professional institute that was built to invest in the minds and lives of justice-impacted individuals while uprooting the dominant narrative that surrounds those who have traveled through the system. At our core and true to our name, we believe that those who have paid their debts to society are all square. And those who have done their time or paid their fines should be supported in and not excluded from securing a bright and productive future. We exist to provide this support through workforce development in our restaurant, and personal development, professional development, mental health services, and restorative services in our institute. With that, I would really love to show you all a 2-minute video that captures a little taste, no pun intended, of what we do and who we are.
This restaurant specializes in one thing: grilled cheese sandwiches. It's called Allsquare, and the secret behind its success isn't just about the food, but the people who work here.
We are employing those who've been impacted by the justice system.
This enterprise was created by Emily Hunt Turner, a civil rights attorney who noticed a need among people with a criminal record.
Once anybody see that you have something on your record, they count you out.
Allsquare sort of came about as like, what can we create that is a response to this movement of criminal justice setbacks? And grilled cheese just kind of fell out of nowhere.
For many of the employees, Allsquare has changed their lives enormously.
With my background, I was having a really hard time finding a job and really not sure which direction you can go in. What Allsquare offers me is an opportunity. I'm just so grateful. I don't really know how to put it into words.
Allsquare is obviously a play on the sandwiches that are actual square, but also the saying is once you've done your time, you're all square.
But Allsquare is so much more than just a second chance restaurant. It also invests in its employees' futures beyond their 9 to 5.
They also go through a 12-month professional development program in which they focus on either attractive entrepreneurship to launch their own business or attractive law, pursuing a career in the legal field.
Hoping to start law school next fall, and I never would have thought that that's possible without the support that I get here. To have my mom be proud of me for the first time in a long time, yeah, that's huge.
When I come to Allsquare, it's just, just making me feel free. I know my mission for being here, put my dreams out of just my head on paper. I know when I come here, I am going to amount to something. When you lock up right home, it's hard to try to figure out what you're going to be in life. You think about job, housing, mental stability, and for me, Allsquare is giving me that.
They came through the doors to have us help them. It's been really impactful to have folks that care about me on a personal level. It's powerful how quick community can be built and how legitimate it can be when it's real.
Today we will hear a variety of bills that are centered on the notion of redemption, and I'd like to say a few things about what redemption does not look like for me. With a sister who is in and out of federal prison, and dear friends and mentors who are constantly facing barriers due to their record, this is and always will be personal. While practicing as a federal attorney, I witnessed the categorical exclusion of those with criminal records from both public and private housing due to tenant selection policies that indiscriminately deny housing to those who have a criminal record, regardless of the record's age, relevance, or accuracy, and regardless of the individual's merit and circumstance. Imagine, if you can, living in a world where you're told that your will, your desire, your dreams, your past, your future, your talent, and your truth simply don't matter. I know a man who was told just this. After years of proving himself a sound, responsible tenant right here in Minneapolis, he lost his housing unit due to a criminal record that was 41 years old. This gentleman and his wife, both in their 60s, had to relocate with family in Texas, despite affidavits from the housing providers themselves saying that they were model tenants, but their policy simply didn't allow for him to stay. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, these policies and practices all across the state do not uphold the notion of redemption, and in fact, they flat out deny it. I don't have a criminal record, but I should. I have engaged in criminal activity on various occasions throughout the course of my life, and I'm not proud of this, but it's real. And this is a part of the discussion that needs to happen as well. The conversation isn't only about those of us who do have criminal records, it is also centered on those of us, including myself, who don't, but should. Why didn't I get caught? Why did I have the privilege to talk my way out of the times that I did get caught? And most importantly, had I been caught, would I be supported today? Would I be an attorney today? Not would I face consequences, but would I ever be allowed to move beyond my mistakes? And would I ever be allowed to pursue a personal and a professional path forward? Allsquare was founded to be a part of that path, and is funded and fueled by citizens, the majority of whom exist right in the state, on the ardent belief that excluding an entire segment of our community from lending, employment, insurance, education, and voting fundamentally undermines humanity and our collective liberation. We ask that you, as lawmakers, thoughtfully examine the reality that our brothers, sisters, neighbors, and colleagues are being perpetually punished beyond their sentence, as we all deserve access to redemption.
Thank you, Ms. Hunt Turner. And by the way, that video made me hungry.
Stop by anytime.
4047,
Sounds like a field here in the
Mr. Chairman and committee, thank you for this opportunity this afternoon. My name is Rosalind Pegerstein, and I'm the board chair of All Square, and I am also here to discuss the importance of today, Redemption Day, and highlight one issue which I feel is of particular importance. Sorry, is this better?
Yes.
Thank you. So unbeknownst to most Americans, our right to vote is actually not fulfilled by the Constitution. It's a right that's been left entrusted to and importantly enforced by each state in this nation. And according to different sources, I've seen online that there's over 52,000 citizens who are disenfranchised by a restriction on their right to vote due to a felony conviction and their corresponding supervision status. A restriction that is felt not just every couple of years on election day, but in their daily lives. The stigma that comes with conviction is just a continuation of the sentence, and restoring the right to vote is a necessary step to reclaiming a sense of dignity and ownership over one's role in the community. And so here we are in 2019, and we're only now celebrating 100 years of women actually having the ability to exercise this right, despite our 242-year history as a democratic nation. But not all women can partake in this celebration. Black women and other women of color, due to our race, were excluded from both the movement, the reach of the movement, and its victory. And Black and Native men who once had this right but saw it stripped away, they too were excluded. And this legacy of exclusion continues today. Of all the many issues at hand for Redemption Day, I highlight the issue of voter restoration, as it impacts so many across all communities, but where this issue intersects and imparts harm on communities of color cannot be understated. And as my own mother tells me, once you know better, you do better. And so, we must pick up the pace in closing the gaps. Gaps that exist due to various iterations of exclusion, from the early days of a convict leasing system that came from the ostensible abolishment of slavery through the 13th Amendment, but left exception for servitude if punishment for a crime, to the redistricting we still see happening today, which in many places allows an entire prison's population to be counted as legitimate constituents for political purposes, but silences them as individuals upon release. Generations of Americans have been denied this right and left to watch from the sidelines as decisions about their futures and their families are decided by, at best, society around them. And so this right is as foundational to our status, our belief in our own personhood and place in this nation as it is to our belief in legitimacy of it itself and its institutions. We proclaim the right to life and to liberty, but for those with a criminal record, it's only as much as it is conditioned on the access determined by each of you, our state representatives. And for what benefit are these restrictions once an individual has served their time? The responsibility of the criminal justice system is to provide consequence, but also to rehabilitate the individual and protect the community's safety, because this condition is typically intended to be temporary. Once an individual has paid their debts to society, will we fulfill our part and truly welcome them back? How are we, the citizens of Minnesota, made better by continuing to limit the voices of our brothers and our sisters in each of those 52,000 impacted? How is our public safety furthered when an individual who has served their time is denied access to housing, to employment, education, mobility, and a voice at the polls, these basic necessities to be what we label a whole and contributive member of society? At All Square, we recognize that we're just one part of a larger whole. We're the new kid on the block. We're motivated and excited to stand alongside others already working in this space. We're excited to do our part, not just to support those in need of a second chance, but to elevate the voices of those who never had a first one, and for those who charity is not enough, but who need change now, dynamic change now. And despite our wild ambition, grilled cheese, it alone won't resolve the issue we're discussing today, but we're doing our part, and our fellows, they and so many others across the state are doing their part. And so listening today, yes, but also taking action, which will aid the justice-impacted community to truly move beyond existing, to having the ability to use their voice, move beyond circumstance, and self-actualize their dreams. That action, that's your part. The state of Minnesota's motto means the Star of the North, a phrase that conjures the spirit strongly related to the journey for freedom and, simply put, fairness. I hope that we as a community continuously strive to live up to that shining standard and make a shift toward greater decency and equity for all. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Petrosini, right? Did I speak correctly, your name correctly?
Yep.
Very well, thank you. Welcome to the committee.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. I am Valencia Hertog. I currently live over South Minneapolis. This is my first time testifying and talking about this topic publicly, and I appreciate your time and attention. I do plan on speaking on this topic in the future because I have a great passion for the changes that is yet to come. I currently am a fellow at All Square as I pursue my career goals, which is to help the people in my community. I am working on becoming a peer recovery coach, as well as my long-term goal to be a dual licensed professional to treat both mental health and substance use. I want to work with my Native American community and people impacted with addiction and violence. I was convicted of a domestic assault in the 2nd degree and received a 27-month sentence and served 15 of those incarcerated. There were so many women I met in prison who were also there because they were victims of domestic assault and simply defended themselves. Some of them were serving life sentences for their first offense. I am here today because I experienced firsthand how having a record makes it difficult to pursue your dream and live a normal life. Having a record means I can't get licensed through the Department of Human Services or certified through the state, which means I can't help the people I want to. The people that, like me, are struggling with addiction and violence, which makes my dreams feel unreachable. But having a record doesn't mean that I am not capable. In fact, it means my experience and my history makes me more capable, relatable, and empathetic. I know what it is like to deal with domestic violence on a daily basis. I know how easy it is to turn to drugs for an escape, to want to be numb. I know I can get my drug-related crimes expunged, but a lot of people, including myself, have other charges that come along with our old lifestyles. Knowing that my 2nd degree assault can never be expunged or pardoned off my record limits me and will follow me for the rest of my life. What are people to do when they want to move on? What are people to do when they are not that old person they once were? How long should a person have to pay for the mistakes they have made in the past, and even after they turn their life around? As of January 12th, 2019, I got off paper and have some of my rights restored, which I am very grateful for and plan to vote during the next election. I live in sober housing, but know that in my future, my record will come and haunt me as I seek permanent housing, knowing they do criminal background checks. In the future, some of my jobs I want to apply for, I know I won't be considered. Some of the schooling I plan for my future won't be able to enroll, or will be told in my 2nd year I won't be able to be licensed or to continue on. And another limiting barrier right now that I'm dealing with is my volunteering opportunities, where they also run background checks. My job opportunities after All Square are slim to none. My path forward is I plan to work through a sovereign nation where the licensing and certifications have different protocols. This gives me hope and my option to still have a positive impact on my community. I know my crime is severe, but my record doesn't reflect the entire story. My criminal history is a reflection of a person addicted to drugs and also in a relationship with a person that has a history of domestic violence. As you consider the bills today, I ask you to consider people as individuals and allow all of us to move forward, as we have decided to become better ourselves. There are many people like me who want to use their experiences, knowledge, and perspective to help people. I know my experiences can help people on similar journeys as mine and want to be better, do better, and get better. Making changes today won't only be helping me achieve my dreams, I know you will be opening the doors for others. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hurtado, and thank you for openly sharing parts of your journey, including the path that you've chosen for yourself going forward in terms of redeeming yourself and helping to redeem our common community. Very admirable, and we're certainly pulling for you, and part of the way we control this to continually look at our laws to see how we can adjust those laws to continue to build community. I have to say, members, as I doorknock this fall, I doorknock several boards with the person who answered, I think, shared the experiences you had, Mr. Todd. Many of them were not off paper yet, so they couldn't vote. We certainly had a strong desire. We had a strong desire also to be good members in our society, and productive, and part of our community. So you're not alone. This is a very common innocent story. So with that, did I pronounce your last name correctly, Hurtado?
Yes.
Very well. Thank you. So with that, I'm going to open this up to questions, and we have a question from Representative Thompson. Sure.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question. Would you say that address lower so I can hear it?
Absolutely. It's 4047 Minnehaha Avenue in Minneapolis, 55406.
Sure, Council, I hope you're bringing me with you. Sounds good. Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for the presentation. I've been there several times. And so don't just think of grilled cheese and think of macaroni. Think of actually like gourmet grilled cheese. It's amazing. I'll tell you right now, you can probably walk out of there without like burning a big hole in your wallet. And just know that while you're eating the food, what makes it even taste better is you're actually helping some people who are trying to get on a different path in their lives. And there's, that's like invaluable in ways that you really can't describe. So I want to thank you for, setting up and doing what you're doing, because it's much, much more than grilled cheese. It's really about the fellowship and people's lives, but the grilled cheese, I think, is fantastic.
I'm wondering, how long has Allsquare in particular been around? You're also part of, if I remember correctly, you're also part of a national movement. Maybe you could say a little bit about that, and then also perhaps share, how many people who have been inspiring to re-enter our society as contributing community members. How many people are you working with? And what have you seen so far through the outcomes?
Let's see, first question. So we have, our first cohort started with 14 fellows, and we are not part of a national organization other than we are incredibly thankful to be joining all the amazing work of people who we know and respect on the ground in cities all across the country doing this work. Many of our board members in particular who have been spearheading voting restoration and the rights of formerly incarcerated individuals across the country. So essentially, can you say that last question, Chairman?
I think you finally answered it. You gave
Sure.
the 14 fellows. I was just trying to get an idea of the scope of lives that have been touched and what kind of results have you seen.
Yeah. So we have, right now, like I said, we love the restaurant piece of this thing, but we have a space next door. It's sort of a dual storefront, and next door is, in our minds, sort of where magic is happening and will really happen in the future in the Institute. And for us, it's not just, like you said, investing in personal development and professional development in the lives of the fellows that go through our program, but it's also engaging in building community. We have restorative circles there each Monday, and check our website and calendar to be determined on, we really look forward to hosting community panels and film screenings and community events that also benefit our fellows and their future careers and their endeavors. We have a variety of different humans in our program, and we love that about it. I think we have a few fellows who are seeking further education, one in nursing, 2 fellows that took their LSAT recently as a team is paralegal associate, and Valencia next to me. But obviously going to be an incredible public speaker, and her dreams that she's achieved on her own of taking all the steps she needs to be a peer recovery counselor. And so it's been a wide array of humans and stories that have walked through our doors, and ultimately they're not, maybe we're contributing to changing their lives, but they've changed ours and the communities as well. The community has been absolutely wonderful in welcoming us with open arms, and they also tip our fellows really well, which we appreciate.
It seems to me that part of the magic, if you will, I shouldn't use that word, part of the dynamic here is that there's still development, happening. You can imagine all sorts of, particularly, having left incarceration and sticking to a schedule, being part of a team, it's coordinated. I get all that. In addition to the technical professional skills that are involved in running a business, but it seems to me that the dynamic really has to do with this personal dynamic. In the video was about the word sharing, or rather caring, supporting. So in other words, in my mind, we can provide all sorts of technical, services for someone to develop their skills. But it seems to me that many of the fellows, in addition to that, really require and are thirsty for ways to round out their humanity, to connect with others, to have others feel themselves out. So you talked about restorative circles, etc. I'm wondering, I thought, if you could share a little bit about what that has meant for you in terms of connecting at that level beyond just the skill professional development.
Well, I would like to just make sure that we mentioned that the institution days are on Monday, and we've done numerous things on Monday. First, we all got food safe served. We all can legally licensed now to work with food and know how to handle it. We also did introduction to law, so we all know our rights too, as people that live in the U.S. today. We also did a 12-week class on entrepreneurship. I never knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew that I was given a voice and I knew what I wanted to do with it. I just didn't know about how going about doing this. During that 12-week course, I found out that I wanted to be a public speaker. I want to speak on certain topics that I only can speak on, that I can only give a certain vision on that. I've been linked up with an awesome mentor that has not only been guiding me, but helped me write my speech to where I was comfortable enough to come up here and talk about it. I've also met some wonderful people that just come in to say hello. Our Grilled Cheese for Lifers are amazing. I met Randy Anderson that way, and he's also one of the ones that helped me get this speech proper and ready because he's been here before. There's so many people. I know that Rosalind is was one of the mentors for somebody now too. So not only are we getting so much support from everybody, I didn't know that it would grow so much in a matter of 6-7 months that what I am right now. If you would have told me I would have came up here and gave a speech, I would have probably backed out of it. But the people I have behind me are amazing. Not only do we have one of the best bosses, or not even, I wouldn't say bosses because that's not the way we run things. We're all a community where I'm considered a fellow, she's a fellow, everybody is considered a fellow. We're all treated equally. We all speak our minds exactly the way we would if we were talking about friendship. We've all become such a tight-knit family now that if one's missing, it feels like something's really not right. I wouldn't know what to do if I didn't have this place.
Very well, thank you Representative Johnson, and then we're gonna move on to our bills.
All right. Chair Mariani, the panel up here, thank you for the work you're doing. It's great to see that somebody's willing to step up and work with these individuals. They're an important part of our community. With what the work you do, it helps them with their self-esteem and makes them a better person. It's unfortunate that some of the consequences of the actions and decisions they made brought this forward. But I'm glad that the community that you live in and where you work is willing to step up and help these people. We have a gentleman that I'm working with in the same situation. We're working with him, making him better. And it's up to all of us to do things to help these people where we can, but we also have to, once they've finished their debt to society.
Terrific, thank you, to our lead, Representative Johnson. Once again, I want to thank you for the testimony today. I want to thank you for creating a platform in which you provide the support so folks can help themselves and empower themselves and be powerful members of our society. Best wishes to you, ongoing best wishes to your work. Watch our work here as we continue to shift potential policy that will walk with you. And I'll be there for the grocery sandwiches very soon. Thank you so much. All right, with that, we're going to move to House File 40, Representative Dean. Representative Dean, you've got some witnesses. I'm going to ask you to move forward just to be ready. Harrison County Attorney John Floyd, Bob Stewart, Justin Sanderson. There's another individual that restored the law. If you can just sort of clump that front, we're going to be efficient with movement and time. And Representative Dean, your motion is to, I believe, lay over House File 40. No? I'll let you make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. I would move that House File 40 be referred to Ways and Means.
Very well. Representative Dean moves that House File 40 be referred to the Committee of Ways and Means. Representative Dean, House File 40 is before us.
Great, thank you. And if the other folks want to come up who are going to be testifying at some point, that would be great too. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, and members of the public, my name is Randy Dean, and in addition to being a state representative, I'm a convicted felon. Today I bring before this committee House File 40, a bill related to the restoration of voting rights for those who have been convicted of a felony offense and are no longer locked up in a correctional facility, or for those who have never spent a day inside a correctional facility. This bill is similar to a bill introduced in 2002 by then State Representative Keith Ellison, who is now our State Attorney General. Over the last 17 years, it has gained greater and greater bipartisan support, and in recent years, even the Republican Chair of Public Safety was the chief author. House File 40 again has several Republican co-authors, and it's time for Minnesota to pass this bill. Currently, roughly 63,000 people in Minnesota are under some type of felony supervision, either locked up in one of our several correctional facilities, or they are out in the public. Roughly 53,000 Minnesotans who are out in the community doing all that they can to lead their best life. This bill would allow those convicted of a felony who are no longer locked up or have never been incarcerated to vote. Minnesota would join 14 other states along with the District of Columbia. And why we would join states like Oregon, Illinois, and Massachusetts. We also would join states like Ohio, Utah, and our neighbors to the northwest, North Dakota. It's time for Minnesota to join these states. I'm going to end my testimony to leave time for others, and I believe they will have some things to say, and I'd like to leave a little time for questions from members as well. So if we can go this way, and then we'll go that way.
Very well, let's go this way. Thank you, Mr. Please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the committee, and thank you to everybody who is here today. My name is Rob Stewart, and I would like to voice my strong support for House File 40. Like tens of thousands of other Minnesotans, this is a very personal issue for me. Not only am I a father and a husband, the executive director of a nonprofit, and a PhD candidate at the University of Minnesota, but I'm also a felon who couldn't vote for nearly 10 years. I'm from Owatonna, and in my mid-20s, I made choices that I'm not proud of. And I was convicted of felony drug possession. In the more than 2 years I was incarcerated, I sobered up, participated in numerous programs, and enrolled in college courses. I also began to invest my energy into making amends and doing what I could to give back to my community through things like tutoring and volunteering, and those are things that I continued after my release. When I got out, I tried to get my life back on track. But, as we've heard from the representatives from Allsquare, and really anyone with a felony record, they will all tell you that everything after a felony in life gets harder. Trying to find somebody who will hire you, somebody who will rent to you, or even a college that will accept you. And on top of that, you can't vote. It doesn't matter that you may own a home or a business and are directly impacted by policy decisions made at the city or state levels, or that the outcome of a school referendum may directly impact your family, or that you're paying taxes. As citizens, we vote because we are invested in the future and the well-being of our towns and our state and our country. And who we let vote sends a signal whose voices we value, who we include as part of our communities. So for me, even though I was living in the community, every single election became a reminder that I was an outsider. I wasn't included as part of the community, and that my voice didn't matter. To be perfectly honest, I was tempted to just check out and stop caring. The irony, of course, is that we expect people involved in the criminal justice system to become productive citizens who are engaged in their communities. Yet we block them from participating in the most basic, the most fundamental duty of citizenship. The estimated 53,320 Minnesotans that we're talking about are our coworkers. They're our neighbors, our family members, and our friends. So I ask, shouldn't we do what we can to encourage their investment in their own futures, their families' futures, and the future of their communities? As for my own situation, I'm happy to report that my life has taken a very positive direction since my conviction. I got married, and we have a perfect 16-month-old little girl. And in a couple months, we are gonna have a baby boy. I finished my bachelor's degree, summa cum laude, and I'm now finishing my PhD, where my research focuses on the barriers associated with successful reentry and reintegration following criminal justice involvement. And things are going well. But I can honestly say that it wasn't until I finally got my right to vote back that I started to feel whole again. And I started to feel like I was part of our community. That was really important to me. And I know it's important to the thousands of Minnesotans who still can't vote. So I encourage you to support felon voting rights restoration and House File 40.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. County Attorney Choi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Good afternoon. My name is John Choi, and I am the Ramsey County Attorney, and I am here today on behalf of the Minnesota County Attorneys Association, which represents all 7 counties. And since 2012, we have been in support of this bill, and I want to thank Representative Dean for his long-term commitment, but it really is time. The reasons for our strong support for this bill is because in terms of improving the quality of justice for all people, I think one of the things that we as a society need to reflect the values that I think are really central in our communities. And it was President Trump, and he wasn't the first and he won't be the last president that will talk about that we are a country of redemption and second chances. And doing everything that we can after somebody has done everything that we've asked them to do to be accountable. We should be doing everything that we can to support their reintegration into society to support the rehabilitation. And what this bill would do, it would make the rules very, very clear. And we would do exactly what North Dakota is doing. Their constitutional provisions, their words and their constitution are exactly the same as ours. Yet, what we have is a more complicated system by which we regulate who can vote, and I think this system would be a much better one, much easier to understand, and also would send a very important message that, in fact, these individuals who are seeking a better life, who are reintegrating into society, that they're important, that they matter. And so those are the reasons for our very, very strong support of this bill, and we're proud to stand with Representative Dean and all the advocates here in this room.
Thank you, County Attorney Choi.
Thank you, Chair Maroney and the members of the committee. My name is Anika Bowie. I'm representing the Restore the Vote Minnesota Coalition as well as the Vice President for Minneapolis NAACP. I appreciate the testimonies as well as the presentation from All Square and support organizations who are restoring the right to vote. Today is Redemption Day, and redemption means the act of clearing of a debt. And today the debt that is being cleared, I hope that's being cleared, has multiple names rooted in hopelessness, rooted in poor decisions, and also rooted in troubling circumstances. And what makes all of us human is that we all have paid a debt to someone or something. And right now we have over 50,000 Minnesotans who have complied with the conditions of our court systems and now is living to comply with our community values. And one of our strongest community values is voting. Minnesota actually has the highest voting percentage, and we are the champions of making voting accessible for those who are eligible. So this is an issue of redemption and also a question of our state's conditions of release. Who is eligible to vote? The conditions should support what makes this North Star great. Voting should not be the award for being a law-abiding member of our society. Voting should be the process of our members to participate in what rewards this society. I just want to be very clear. We should not use voting as the golden nugget to what makes us great. We should allow people to participate in voting because that's what makes us great. Voting should be the process of our members to participate, and that is also rewarding. Serving time only tells one story if a person is convicted of a felon. And that one story should not be the maker of one's civil rights. Members of our society and our family members are more than their conditions of their sentence. They're more than the conditions from a judge or prosecutors. They are living in our society and they should participate. And this is a civil rights issue that is valued by our prosecutor, our lawmakers, and over 90 organizations who are in partnership with Restore the Vote Coalition in support of Bill HF 40. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bill. Welcome to the committee.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gwintana Meliki. Many of you guys know me through my extensive policy and community organizing work. I come to you actually today as a small business owner. I was recently at the Capitol testifying on behalf of my business last week. I'm actually here testifying on behalf of my employees. I started a business it was actually going to be 6 months and 2 weeks. And when I started hiring, I was just hiring friends, family, people that I knew, people that had experience in the industry. I have done very extensive voter engagement work. I've knocked on tens of thousands of doors, talked to tons of voters. Each election day, I usually find myself volunteering somewhere. This election day, I was in the back of the house, in my kitchen, at my restaurant. I told my employees, if you need time off to go vote, go do it. And the response I actually got was that everybody was actually currently serving on felony probation. As someone that sees voting as a priority, I also see it essential to being able to support my staff and their ability to re-enter the community, not only as like my employees, but also as just standard citizens. I think that we often limit the abilities of folks that have former felony convictions, and I see them out here, running a very successful kitchen in a very prominent restaurant. And I want to be the type of boss that can support them in their I want to be the type of boss that supports them in their expansion and their development. I want to be the type of boss that invests in people's leadership and can create a trajectory for them. But if I have staff on election day that literally feel like their government doesn't even support them in voting, how are they going to feel able to re-enter society as a valued member? And so I'm just here advocating as a small business owner that wants to see my staff have the same rights that I have. And so I ask each and every one of you to support small businesses that support our staffers.
Thank you, Ms. Archie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask Justice Paul Anderson to come and speak on behalf of us.
Welcome to the committee, Justice Anderson.
If I had gotten here early enough, I would have given green, yellow, and red cards to Representative Bowler. I used to have lights in front of her to let her know how much time we had to speak. Next time I'll do that.
I get to ask you questions
Okay, I have prepared remarks. I know you're pressed for time. I'm going to give them to Representative Dean, so I'll highlight what I want to say. First of all, the restoration of the right to vote is good policy. No question from my mind that it is good policy. It's consistent with the goal of our criminal justice system and the type of civil society we want to be part of. It makes common sense, and basically it's the right thing to do. Now, as Kelly and others know, is that I believe in punishment of the wrongdoer. I've upheld the punishment of many felons who have come before our court. That's the way our society works. We punish the wrongdoer because they have had improper benefit and they need to pay the price. Also, I want to make sure you understand, I oppose the restoration of the right to anybody while they're in prison. That's a very different circumstance than what we're talking about here. But, as I said, restoring the vote adheres to the broad goals of what the criminal justice system is about. Rehabilitation and preparation for somebody to come back into society and to be restored to their full rights as citizenship. What better time to teach somebody about how citizens should work than when they're on paper? I mean, make them find out where they need to go vote. I mean, you can't force them to vote, and I would never do that, but teach them, well, in fact, you have some obligation. Now, as a judge, I could be merciful, I could be compassionate, I could not be forgiving. There's another aspect to this issue that deals with society and how society is willing to forgive. Forgiveness has been delegated in our society to the legislature and to the executive. It's an awesome responsibility. Personally, I see no benefit from depriving somebody who is out of prison and in society and functioning in society to deprive them of the right to vote. The only thing that I can see that has an effect, it is a punishment, further punishment. Now, for those of you who want to punish and want to be harsh, okay, I'll concede to that. It's policy, you can go that way. I just disagree with you. Because why do we make criminal? Well, we have taught people from the first grade what is a civic duty. And is that if we truly believe we want to restore people, let's put them on that path as soon as we can and teach them how to be. Finally, I'm going to tell you that this is not a partisan issue. I know these people. I've reviewed their records. I see they're as likely to vote Republican as Democrat, and I can cite you statistics and studies that show that. In fact, some of them, I guess, are more likely to vote Republican than they are Democrat. So don't treat it as a partisan issue. Treat it as a policy issue. So forgiveness belongs to you. The road to redemption and rehabilitation belongs to you. And I will leave with the comments to say that I often told my clerks about how we did my job and whatever. I quoted Sir Robert Morton from the play The Winslow Boy. You know, justice is often the easy part. You can justify a lot under the concept it's just. I mean, we can see it all over the place. But this is something more than that. This is about doing the right thing. And I hope that you do the right thing for the civil society we want in Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Anderson. As usual, I always learn when I hear from you, and I'm always inspired.
Well, there's more in what I've written, so.
I'll take it home and get more inspired. So, Representative, I also do want to acknowledge there's written testimony from County Attorney Mike Freeman that has been distributed, and so that'll be entered into the record as well. Do you have any further testimony?
Mr. Chair, I actually believe there's one person from the public who would like to combine.
Wonderful. Why don't we open that up for public members? Please don't wander too far because there may be questions for the folks who have testified. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for inviting me. My name is Minister Janae Bates. I am representing Isaiah as well as my congregation where I serve as Associate Minister, which is Camper Memorial United Methodist Church in St. Paul. And I feel really blessed to be before you today specifically because today is Ash Wednesday. And for those of you who aren't familiar, this is a day of repentance and lament for many, many people. And so while we are calling for repentance and lament and redemption for those who are currently incarcerated or who were convicted of a crime, we also have to remember that we as Minnesotans are in need of redemption. And I say that because we have committed the crime of stealing someone's voice, someone's civic engagement, someone's civic responsibility to be able to completely act fully with their full dignity and humanity in our society. And we have taken that from them. And so the way that we can make ourselves right, the way that we can fully embody redemption as Minnesotans is by restoring their voice and their vote. And so I speak very highly in favor of this bill, HF 40, because this is the moral and just and right thing to do for all Minnesotans, not just those who we're speaking about today, but ourselves, black, white, brown, greater Minnesotans, folks who live in the cities, in the suburbs. We are all in need of redemption today. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Bates, and thank you for your fine work at Camper Church, really one of the bedrock institutions of my home city.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir, to the committee.
Hello, thank you. My name is Tier Caldwell. I'm a member of the FBI Community Outreach Program where I educate middle school kids and high school kids about drug education. I'm a member of the ACLU Smart Justice Advisory Board and facilitator at the Fathers Project, and I'm a member of the Power People Leadership Institute, the largest reentry group in Minnesota and most successful, might I add. Also, I'm a member of Adults Reaching Kids, and it's a program with my church, with the youth ministry at New Creation Baptist Church. I've been sober for 10 years. I have a book being published in a couple months, and I've also recently served 7 years out of my 9-year sentence. I was recently released back into society in December of 2016. When you re-enter society, like, you look for things to, like, you gravitate towards things to make you feel a part of society, but also to erase the identity of prison. And when you get excluded from that, it kind of makes you feel like you're right back in a prison, just without the walls. So the only thing I'll say, I'll close, I'll be real quick. I just ask for redemption and not exemption.
Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. Thank you for the work you do with Power People Institute. Representative?
Mr. Chair, I think if you go to questions, and then I'd like to make a closing statement.
Very well. We do have some questions. Beginning with Representative Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Dean, for bringing this bill forward. As Justice Anderson mentioned, this is not a partisan issue. The partisan identity really is not going to, I think, likely make an impact one way or the other. And we've also heard that this is going to affect people of color and white people as well. But I do think it's important that we remember the history of how some of these laws came to be, and that the biggest wave of these laws came after the Civil War, when, coincidentally or not, black men first got the right to vote, and a lot of states were passing laws to try to restrict those rights in other ways. So this was what gave rise to a lot of the felon disenfranchisement that we have today. Also think it's important for us to remember some of the prior hearings that we've had about why this uniquely impacts Minnesota, and that's because of our probation laws, and we have the 6 longest probation terms in the country. And we heard from Jennifer Schroeder, who testified that she's going to be 73 before she's able to vote, even though she's out, has gotten 4.0 and graduated from college. So these go together in terms of the impacts that we're seeing on the state. I have 2 questions. The first is that, as the chair mentioned, when I've been out door knocking a lot myself, and I've had a lot of conversations with folks who I've tried to encourage to vote, and who mentioned that they don't think they're able to, even though they're off paper. This, I think, has an impact even beyond the lack of understanding about any indication of how many people choose not to vote because of a lack of understanding about how the law works and what that impact is beyond those that are prohibited under law.
Representative and members, let me just interrupt very quickly. We're a little bit behind time. I want to make sure we get to the next bill. And then we're going to have a brief presentation on the 3rd bill. Representative, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative. I don't have exact numbers, but I've had those same conversations with individuals. And my first question is always, well, are you still on probation or supervision? And they say no. And I'll say, well, then you can vote. And they say, well, I don't want to risk it. You know, I applied for a pardon with the state of Minnesota so that I could vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If I may answer that, I actually have information on that. I was part of 2 very extensive recounts and some others dealing with state legislation. A lot of comment is made about felons who want to vote illegally. That's not a big issue in the state of Minnesota. The Coleman Franklin race, I think they came up with 19 out of 3 million votes. But you are absolutely right. The consequence is that people don't want to violate the law. They are afraid they might violate the law. So even when they're able to vote, they are concerned and they don't vote. So I think there's a lot of self-disenfranchisement going on because of the way the law works. And I've seen that. I've looked at ballots and all of that.
Right. Mr. Chairman, that leads into my second question, which is for those 19, or for the individuals who actually are voting, often they may not even know the rule about their ability not to vote. My question is for County Attorney Choi. I'm wondering if you've had to devote resources as a county attorney to prosecuting these cases, and if you think that those are a use of resources that are well tailored to protecting public safety.
No, they're not. In fact, one of the things that this recent legislature did was to change the requirements so that before it used to be that the legislative branch was really trying to force the executive branch through the prosecution function to prosecute these cases. But because of some changes that the legislature has made, we're able to make just decisions in those circumstances. But when we are faced with those types of situations, and the law is what it is, there is absolutely no value from a public safety perspective when we're spending time trying to investigate those situations. So I think, again, like I said before, this will make it very clear there is a lot of confusion out there for people, and they don't want to subject themselves and put themselves in peril to be in violation of the law. So I do think that many people are kind of deciding not to vote. And I think that's something that can be done with this bill, which makes it very clear. If you're in prison, if you're in jail, if you're incarcerated, you can't vote. But if you are not, it's so easy, because if you're out there, go and vote. And then that's a very pro-social activity. It goes towards rehabilitation and makes us, as a state, as a community, much better and stronger.
Well,
thank you, Mr. Chair.
Chuck Consulate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually called the advisor's office and said, when was this put in? When did we start doing this? Well, it was written in the Constitution in 1858. It's in it. But at that time, there wasn't a concept of parole or probation. So felons were people who were actually in prison. So once you walked out the door, your voting rights were brought back to you. It wasn't until you started getting into probation and parole that it was extended past when you would step out the door. I just actually, the gentleman from Owatonna, is he still here?
Mr. Stewart.
You're doing a dissertation on the problems of reentry?
Yes.
possible to get a copy of that when you're done?
Sure. My dissertation primarily focuses on higher education access for people following involvement with the criminal justice system. But in addition to that, I'm also working on several projects related to voting, and one, for example, looking at people who are convicted of voting illegally because of being on a felony. Just to understand, to that earlier question.
Well, given your background, I think it might be real enlightening. Yeah, it would be really enlightening for us if you could maybe get that to our committee administrator for dissemination. Or for it.
Absolutely.
And David, best wishes to you and your studies. St. Johnson.
Chair Mariani, a couple things have come up while we're sitting here listening to testimony and responses to the questions. First of all, Judge Anderson mentioned that during the recount there was 19 felons that had voted. I'm just wondering if they were charged since it's a crime. Or how many were charged?
Justice, or rather justice.
They looked at a lot of ballots, and when it all sorted out, from the county attorneys who are required to prosecute felony voting, improper voting by felons, that's the number that they came to us with. At the final argument on that court, I asked Joe Freeberg, attorney for Senator Coleman, and I asked Mark Elias, the attorney for Senator Franklin, did you see any fraud in this election that caused you any concern at all? And the answer was an absolute no. Now, Freeberg said he knew why I asked that question because it would show up in my opinion, and it did. But that question was asked and answered. So, folks, don't deal in fake news or whatever you want to call it. It was not that present in that election.
Representative Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to that point, I mean, I've gotten numbers from Hennepin County that over the past 4 years, there's actually been one individual who has been convicted of voting illegally. And I think the thing that we need to look at, and I don't know the law as well as some other people, but when it comes to issues of voting illegally, there has to be intention. Which is often very, very hard to prove, which is one of the reasons why many county attorneys don't want to spend lots and lots of resources, because we do have, there are individuals that vote mistakenly, which is very, very different than like saying voting at 3 polling places on one night, which clearly there is intention in this case. I mean, a couple of years ago, there was a woman in her 90s, I believe, that was charged for voting a second time because she had already voted absentee, and ultimately it didn't get cross-referenced, so they were, and in the end, the county attorney did not charge that case. There's clearly an issue that there wasn't voter fraud intent that happened in that case.
Very well. Representative Johnson.
Let me clarify the number 19. That's how many cases they thought might be worth investing.
Very well. Thank you, Justice. Representative Johnson.
Sure, Mariani. So apparently none were charged out. Now, it was brought up that originally in our Constitution, that in there, I still believe it's a constitutional issue. You can have parole or probation. We don't have parole anymore, we have probation. And that was set up in the 70s. That was designed to help a couple different things. One, to lower the number of people in prison. When you do start sentences, because part of your felony sentence was in served incarceration, and part of your sentence was on paper. Minnesota, yeah, we have the 6th largest time on paper. For parole, maybe, or probation, maybe we need to look at that a little bit. I'm not sure yet. I'm still looking into that. But we have, I believe last time I checked, we're the 3rd shortest of incarceration time. It's a standoff. Or it's not a standoff, but it's a straight up. Either short incarceration time, longer probation, shorter probation, longer incarceration. And we have to make sure that the victims of these crimes get their days as well. How you talked about, as soon as they're getting out of prison, being able to vote. But we have some of the victims of these crimes that can't go to the polls. They can only vote by mail. That's why that Safe at Home program. They're not in any poll books because their name is kept private and hidden, and nobody can know where they live. They are in constant fear of the person who committed the crime against them finding them. Yet, if we allow them free access to the voting polls without finishing their sentence, they're getting more rights from the victims of the crimes they commit.
So Johnson, as you recall from earlier testimony, we're also inching up toward the top in terms of lethal prevention. In our state, February 13th was the last time. Total criminal supervision, not just on prevention. Representative Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to that point, and this will cut my closing remarks. I mean, this is something that's supported by, the County Corrections Association, the Minnesota County Attorneys, and, the Minnesota Council of Churches, Minnesota Catholic Conference, and to Representative Johnson's last point, Restoring the Vote is also supported by the Domestic Abuse Project. Again, this is about creating civic behavior for individuals that are no longer incarcerated, and anything we can do to help exacerbate an individual's desire to do what's right, I think we should be doing.
Representative Grosso.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Dean, I guess I'm looking at this, who would qualify to get their voting rights back and when, that's one part. And then, I guess, my concern is, would someone who was convicted of a predatory crime, like criminal sex, kidnapping, murder, child pornography, would these individuals also qualify?
Representative.
Mr. Chair, currently our state law is written so that when those individuals are off supervision, they can vote. So we already allow those individuals to vote once they're off supervision. The only thing that would change is they would be allowed to vote while they're currently under supervision.
Is that an area that you would be willing to have them wait until the end of their supervision? As to
Yes, Mr. Chair, that wasn't yes to your question. Mr. Chair,
that was easy.
I mean, one of the things we're trying to do with this bill is create a bright line. And that bright line is if you are locked up, you cannot vote. If you are out in public, expected to pay taxes, live a good life, raise your family, be responsible, that you can vote. And when we start looking at excluding certain types of crimes from voting, we now create a system that actually becomes more complicated than the current one that we have. So I think for the sake of that bright line and for the sake of all of our election judges and Secretary of State's office and all these other folks, I think it just makes sense.
Very well. Representative Ellis?
One more.
Representative Russell,
Okay.
please.
And just with that being said, I guess since if they reoffend after their incarceration, if they reoffend, they would lose their right to vote again. Do you think that would be detrimental to suddenly have that back, just to have it taken away again? Would you consider, since the most common reoffense time is 3 years out, would you consider looking at, okay, let's give them something to, a goal for them to work towards, something to achieve. Put it 3 years out, and this person is free from incarceration, have shown that they're not going to reoffend in that time, and they have that waiting at the end for it, something to work towards.
Mr. Chair, my answer would be real similar to my last question. This is about the bright line, and what you're talking about is not having a bright line. So I would not support something like that. I mean, I'd be more than happy to talk to anybody on your side that wants to talk about something that, you know, could be amenable to all of you. No one from your side has come and talked to me about this bill. The only time I've heard about it is through testimony. And I would just encourage all of us to sit down with bill authors and have conversations when we see these bills. Because I think there are some areas of, one, misunderstanding, which can be clarified much easier in a conversation than in a committee testimony. And, you know, sometimes there's just disagreement, and we can go back and forth for 2-3 hours, and we might not come to agreement with those things. So I'm just encouraging us, you know, as deadlines begin to be closer and closer, and you know, time in committee becomes more and more precious, that we really be cognizant of other ways of trying to address these issues as well.
Others, the chair wants to take a vote on this bill, and so I'm going to ask the last two folks here to keep it super short. Representative Ross, out of respect for you, allow this, but then we'll do it for Representative Edelson, and we'll do it for the vote. Representative Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was just gonna say, this is not a one side or the other issue here. This is trying to find some common ground from which to work from. So to say no one from my side came to talk to you, I've been talking to the right to vote folks, trying to give some encouragement, trying to say, you know what, there is some common ground to find, and 3 years would be a solid line. There would be no guessing. I mean, just like after incarceration, you put it out 3 years. That's a solid line. There's no guessing at that. So I'd be more than glad to talk to you.
To that point, very quickly, again, it would cause lots of confusion at plenty of places when people would have to be asked, so have you been out from lockup for 3 years? I mean, I don't see the practicality, but I think there are some areas that we can have some conversations to get some better understanding.
So it's like some good future conversations as this bill moves along. Representative Edelson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Representative Dean, for bringing this bill. I think it is long overdue. If we can trust people to be in our communities, we should trust them to vote. I would also like to remind members, when we're talking about people that have committed crimes, the first testifier from Foursquare said that she committed a crime, but she's a small business owner that's contributing in our communities. Not all crimes are violent crimes. And again, we've been talking about in our committee a lot about who are convicted of crimes, and they're oftentimes impoverished people. As somebody that grew up in poverty, I'm lucky to not be in prison. But I want to thank you for bringing this bill. I just want to know, just on clarification, Representative Dean, when does this bill actually take effect if we can get it through? Because there's no language that I see.
Madam Vice Chair? If there's no actual designated date, generally those take effect on August 1st, if I'm not mistaken, but I would leave that to nonpartisan staff to
Okay, some clarification from Mr. Evans. Mr. Johnson.
No problem. Mr. Chair, members, yes, since there's no appropriation tied to this, it would be August.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. So Dave, you get the last word, and hopefully it'll be approved.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, thank you, members, and thank you to all my testifiers. This is something that's long overdue in the state of Minnesota. We're seeing more and more states enfranchising people to vote, and I think it's time that we join the likes of Utah and North Dakota and allow those individuals who are not currently in lockup to be able to vote and have their voices heard when it comes to our elections. So thank you again for your consideration, and I would ask members to support.